Hey folks, welcome back to Falklands Fish. It's time for another update. I've had a busy week at work and in the fish room. Got a couple of things to show you that are interesting and I think you'll enjoy. See you on the other side. Okay folks, thanks for coming back and revisiting what possibly is Australia's most uninteresting aquarium fish related YouTube channel. What I've done this week is some work for the future. The tank we're looking at here is a Tanganyikan focused breeding project, and the hero we're looking at here is the long slender fish in front, the Enantiopus melanogenes Jatuta black chins. I was really lucky to get offered some of these late last year by my good buddy Bill in Melbourne. Thank you so much, Bill. And we got these down late last year as young fish. There was a little bit of a shock when they arrived, and unfortunately a few perished sort of night one, but then we rolled on with 10 individuals for quite some time, and what's happened is that I've gotten sick of looking at those same 10 individuals not producing. It superficially looked like a good ratio of male to female. It looked like 3 boys and 7 girls, and I had colleagues that could come and eyeball them that thought the same thing just by looking, but this was without vent sexing, and that's something that I just can't do, and is also challenging before fish have bred. My first instinct always with harem spawning fish is that if they're not breeding, then it's food, it's water, it's ratio, one of those things, and the first thing we look at is working on the ratio. So I got into this tank earlier in the week and I took out a couple of males. We've parked one just next door in what's looking like a bit of a mosh pit now of mixed species, and we parked another one over yonder. Same deal. Believe these 2 were males. They were certainly well coloured at the time. They've kind of dropped out now because they don't have females to keep them looking good. That left me with 7 fish, and my wish was to drop in these beautiful little gold Alto Compressoceps, which came from another good mate, Kev, up in the Wollongong area, Wollongong, South Sydney, and that was a great plan until such time as I forgot to shut one of the lids properly the first night. I left one of my sliding style lids open by about 1 inch as I was dropping in comps, and I came out the following morning to find 3 of these bloody things on the floor. I couldn't believe that they'd fidgeted and whatever that much overnight, that 3 of the buggers had ended up on the ground. So now I've got 5 left here, plus the 2 boys we just looked at. And I'm back to looking at what I think is now 2 boys and 3 girls. So sure enough, another male has kind of found his mojo a little bit. But it just remains to be seen whether I've got any females here to work with, and I'm kicking myself for doing the basics wrong. This was certainly a 2 steps forward, 3 steps back move from me this week. So note to Tanganyikan keepers, please shut your lids, because a lot of these fish are jumpy, and that's often probably around morning time when your lights are coming on. Anyway, the remainders here look well, and we just got to keep pumping food in and keep on hoping for the best. Next job we'll look at around the back here, and this might not be a great viewing experience because these fish are incredibly secretive. This is a 50 litre tank, and I've got 4 little West African dwarfs in here, Nanochromis transvestitus. I've had 8 of these for a long time in this one tank. They were small and we were trying to grow them on a bit with a view to getting pairs out. I believe these are sexually dimorphic, so I think people of able eyesight would be able to eyeball and check out differential marking on the male and the female, but unfortunately that's not my go with my eyesight. And my route is normally to kind of set up a favourable territory at one end of a tank with a view to a good pair picking the good spot and booting everybody else out of the way. The good news is that out of the 8 fish I got originally, I still got 8, so we've now got 4 in each of these 2 tanks. I might see if we can draw them out with a bit of food. Let's see if feeding the little buggers helps get some proof of life. They're a pretty cool little fish. They're not your typical African, like they're not a rifflite. These are a riverine species and they want soft water and not much in the way of minerals. And luckily enough, down here in Tassie, my tap water is right up that alley. But they're just an annoying fish because they really are towy and secretive little beggars, and the viewing pleasure here is next to bloody zero. And they are just not going to perform even with a bit of food in. Let's try this tank. We can certainly see that they've been around the habitat here. There's some excavation under the pots here. But at this moment it's just an unfortunately boring little fish that's not giving me a lot of pleasure or love. I'm going to have to revisit this one day and prove that I've actually got the damn things. And I'm sure this is exactly what happened the last time I tried to film these. They were just very, very touchy. Alright, let's write that off as a bad joke. No fun to be had there. I'm going to offer a little update on something we showed you last week. Up here in this fry box are the Placidochromis blue otters that were egg tumbling last week. These have only been in our box for half an hour at most, so they're still kind of finding their fins, a little bit clustered, and that's fine. I'll start feeding these tomorrow on a starter food, an Otter Jaime branded thing that I use, and we'll get these up and away. But we've had a good tumble out of that particular group, so now we get these started in the fry saver, which is a nice way to start with minimal food that they do find. And even though it seems like it's a small volume of water, they're getting the benefit of being in 100 litres of water overall when you count the outer tank. So that gives them the mineral content they need, and in that small volume of water they find their food, and growth rate can still be quite surprisingly good. One of my successful catch and clean and strip motions this week was this little cluster of Nimbochromis venustus. We've managed to catch and strip 2 females. One female that had these little bubs which are full term and ready to go. Once again, they've just been let out into this box, so only sort of half an hour out of the egg tumbler, but now they're they'll get a feed tomorrow, and same story. I'll just hold them in this little box. By the way, this is one of the fry savers I've made in a previous video. If you want to bore yourself to tears and go back and watch that one. But nice little kickstart for these fish in a grow out, and we'll get them along, sort of maybe double their size, and then I can let them out in the bigger tank when they're just a little bit more wits about them and less likely to get knocked off by somebody bigger and meaner. I do like the Venustus as a species because of that, what we just saw, where the juvenile fish are already nicely marked as a juvenile, and we can actually see a previous batch in amongst this giant mosh here. This is a grow out tank, and I think it might have even been the same female that produced a batch some 2 months ago now, and I'm pretty sure I counted about 84 or 5 into this 6 foot tank here, which is essentially a grow out, and we're just trying to smash some size into these so that we can get them out to hopefully a good wholesaler or a shop, and out to the market. This is the tank we stripped to get those Venustus. We've got some juveniles in front. My active breeding group, the mature fish, consists of a decent sized boy and 3 girls, and as always I seem to just be in trouble with the next problem occurring. So we've got some young fish in here which are acting as a little bit of dither, but also we're growing them on to get our next boy and a few more girls, and we'll roll like that. I'll drop a bit of food in up here and see if we can get Dad to come out. I'm pretty happy with this line of Venustus. I think there were some getting around the country years ago that looked a little bit maybe crossed with Livingstone or whatever. The body shape wasn't quite right. The Venustus were obviously looking for the famous giraffe pattern, which is where their common name comes from, but also a nice deep body shape. They're a little bit deeper in the body than your Livingstone gets. I do have a lovely boy, but he's hiding down back, and I'd love him to come to the front. The other fish I'm housing with, by the way, the little yellow guys are Trophiops chalumbas, juveniles, juvenile colouring, and female is the nice clean yellow that we're looking at here. And we should have a male over here somewhere. No, it looks a little bit like a hongy. 2 or 3 boys in here, and waiting on these to mature up. There's our boy. They must be getting close to breeding, given that we've got coloured males. So a nice Mabuna species that I have that we hope to get back to. The male just does not want to come up. I'm sorry, folks. We'll get him in the net one day. I don't like filming fish in the net much, but sometimes you sort of have to. And probably the final thing that's happened this week, and it's only literally happened in the last couple of hours, and it's made me pretty bloody happy, and it's a feel good, is my good friend Alison and Jason. They've brought me back some Frontosas that are mature breeders. This is your standard Burundi Frontosa, but these trace back to some wild imports brought into the country probably 10 or 12 years ago now, but bona fide Burundis. And what we have here, I think, is 8 females have been brought in. I've got a male here somewhere. that was already here, so he's kind of maybe got them a little bit down one end at the moment. But the fish look super well settled. They've only come out of buckets 2 hours ago. And Fonnies, you know, they can go pretty dark and sooky if they're not happy. This is an 8-foot tank. This is where I used to breed a nice amount of Frontoses, and we're running with, I've got 4 of these Limnochromis auratus, of which I know there's a pair involved because I've seen fry, but I haven't managed to isolate the pair yet. So we've got a couple of nice caves ready for hopefully finally identifying the pair of Limnochromis to get to a tank. And then we've just got a couple of stray Nagara flametail peacocks here. I've actually got some additional Nagaras coming to form a nice new colony. And somewhere or other here is this is actually a Cholumba, Trophiops Cholumba that we were just looking at with the Venustus that was, I thought he was dead the other day when I went into that tank. He was so clobbered. So I've thrown him over here for a bit of respite, and he's going to hopefully grow back all the bits and pieces that were damaged, and he might end up in someone's display tank as a spare male. Another Limnochromis down here. About the only other thing I've got to get to pretty shortly is we've got a bit of a mosh going on here too. We have some Calachromis macrops on the bottom, which is a Lake Tanganyika cichlid, and this giant mound of sand in the front of the glass is the breeding bower produced by one of those, and this boy's obviously got some delusions of grandeur because he's moved most of the sand in this tank down front, which is kind of different because they normally do that down the back corners. I'm pretty sure we've got a female kicking around here somewhere that will need to get stripped pretty soon. So that's one of my jobs for tomorrow after I've walked the dog. And that's probably most of the happy things I've done this week. Yeah, I think I'll call it quits at that, folks. Thanks for watching again, and hopefully I'll get you back next Sunday night for what's going on next. Thanks for watching. See you soon.